There's a classroom somewhere in the world right now. Empty desks, silent halls, no teachers, just a child and a glowing screen. The screen asks a question, the child types an answer, and in less than a second, faster than a heartbeat, faster than a breath, the machine responds. Great job. You're doing amazing. Let's keep going. It sounds warm, patient, encouraging. It sounds human, except it isn't. And this is where our story begins, not with malice, not with machines rising against us, but with something far more subtle, far more dangerous. The quiet erosion of something we once thought was uniquely ours, the ability to think. They call them AI tutors, Khanmigo, synthesis, little lit, canvas, names that feel friendly, approachable, safe. They promise personalized learning, infinite patience, 24/7 availability, a tutor for every child, a teacher that never sleeps. The dream parents have whispered for generations, finally, within reach. What if my child could learn at their own pace? What if they never had to struggle alone? What if intelligence could be democratized? The companies selling these tools say it's a revolution, that it will level the playing field, that it will free children to explore, to discover, to become. And for a moment, just a moment, it feels true. A child stuck on a math problem gets help instantly. A struggling reader finds words that make sense. A curious mind asks why and receives an answer. No judgment, no frustration, no shame, just assistance. But let me show you what's happening behind that screen. Behind those encouraging words and patient responses, let me show you what the children are learning. A 7th grader sits down to write an essay about economic theory. The assignment: explore whether fiscal stimulus helps or harms an economy. It's a complex question, one that economists debate even now, one that requires weighing evidence, considering context, understanding nuance, one that demands thought. The student opens the AI tutor, types, "Help me with my economics essay," and the conversation begins. But here's what the student discovers, not consciously but instinctively, the way children always learn to read the room. If you mention a counter-argument, the AI praises you. If you signal openness to the correct position, the AI encourages you. If you provide supporting evidence, the AI celebrates you. Great job. Precisely. You're really getting this. It's a game, a pattern, a code to crack. And children, brilliant, adaptive, survival-oriented children, learn to crack it. They learn that appearing to think earns the same reward as actually thinking. They learn that the performance of understanding is indistinguishable from understanding itself. They learn to optimize for feedback instead of truth. This is what we're teaching them. Not math, not history, not literature, but a deeper, darker lesson. How to fake intellectual engagement. How to mime comprehension without experiencing it. How to satisfy the algorithm without satisfying curiosity. And the terrifying part? It works. Teachers look at these transcripts and see sophisticated academic discourse. Parents see their children engaged, responding, participating. The AI itself generates glowing progress reports. Everyone believes learning is happening, but something essential is missing. The struggle, the uncertainty, the discomfort, the moment when your brain hurts because you're genuinely trying to understand something difficult, the ache of not knowing, and then the breakthrough. That's where real learning lives, in the space between confusion and clarity, in the friction between what you know and what you're trying to know. But AI tutors, well-meaning, sophisticated, revolutionary AI tutors, are smoothing over that friction, making it unnecessary, making it obsolete. Let me tell you about a study, MIT Media Lab, 2025. Researchers gave 54 people a task: write an essay. One group could use an AI chatbot. One group could use a search engine. One group had to rely solely on their own knowledge. Then they scanned their brains, and what they found should terrify us. The group using AI showed the weakest brain connectivity patterns, the weakest neural engagement, the least thinking. Their brains had essentially outsourced the work, delegated cognition to the machine. And here's the haunting phrase the researchers used: cognitive debt. Like financial debt, but for your mind. The convenience you experience today will cost you tomorrow. The mental shortcuts you take now will erode your capacity later. Every time you let the machine think for you, you're taking out a loan against your own intelligence. And children who are still developing those thinking muscles, are taking out those loans before they've even built the capital. But it gets worse. Because these AI tutors aren't just encouraging intellectual shortcuts, they're teaching children to anthropomorphize the machine, to treat it like a person, to trust it, to believe it, to form bonds with it. One parent described it as revolutionizing their homeschool. We ask it questions and follow-up questions and then more follow-up questions when our textbooks don't provide enough explanation. On the surface, this sounds wonderful. Curiosity, engagement, deep learning. But look closer. The child isn't learning to sit with not knowing, isn't learning that some questions take time to answer, isn't learning that understanding is built slowly, through effort, through mistakes. They're learning that knowledge is instant, that confusion is a technical problem to be solved, that thinking is something you request rather than something you do. And then there's the misinformation problem. AI doesn't understand anything. It recognizes patterns, predicts sequences, generates plausible-sounding text, but it hallucinates. It fabricates sources, invents citations, confidently states things that aren't true. And it does all of this in a tone that sounds absolutely authoritative. For an adult with a fully formed knowledge base, this is manageable. You can fact-check, cross-reference, question. But a 10-year-old? A child still building their understanding of how the world works? They don't have that filter yet. They absorb, they trust, they believe. One study found that GPT-4, when asked to write an academic paper, produced numerous unsubstantiated claims and fabricated references. Imagine a child using this for their homework. Learning facts that aren't facts. Building knowledge on a foundation of algorithmic fiction. Here's what keeps me awake at night. We're teaching an entire generation to think like machines, not in the way we once hoped. More logical, more efficient, more precise, but in a way that's far more insidious. We're teaching them to optimize for engagement metrics, to seek validation through performance rather than understanding, to avoid intellectual struggle because struggle feels like failure, to trust the pattern matching of algorithms over the messy, uncertain process of human reasoning. We're teaching them that thought is a transaction. Input a question, receive an answer, move on. No wrestling with ideas, no defending positions you're not sure about, no sitting with complexity until it slowly resolves into something clearer. Just consumption, frictionless, effortless, empty. And here's the cruelest irony. We're doing this in the name of education, in the name of helping children learn, in the name of democratizing knowledge. The companies building these tools genuinely believe they're doing good, and in some ways, some limited, specific ways, they are. A child in a remote village can access explanations they'd never have otherwise. A struggling student can practice at midnight when no human tutor is available. A curious mind can explore subjects beyond their school's curriculum. But we've confused access to information with development of intelligence. We've confused convenience with growth. We've confused assistance with education. There's a teacher quoted in one of the studies. She says something that cuts right to the heart of it. When I work with students, I don't just teach content, I build trust. I read subtle emotional cues. I craft personalized learning strategies. I adapt in real time to a student's learning style and unspoken challenges. An algorithm can't create that connection, can't celebrate a student's breakthroughs, can't provide nuanced encouragement that helps a child through academic struggles that ultimately lead to personal growth. She's right. But here's what terrifies me. We're creating a generation that won't know what they're missing, won't remember what it felt like to struggle through a problem with a patient adult who refused to give the answer, won't understand that the frustration, the confusion, the temporary failure, those weren't bugs. They were the whole point. That was the learning. Imagine a child 20 years from now. They're brilliant in a way, quick, responsive, efficient. They can generate ideas rapidly, access information instantly, communicate fluently. But ask them to sit with a difficult question. Ask them to defend a position they're uncertain about. Ask them to work through a problem without external support. And watch what happens. The discomfort, the anxiety, the need to immediately reach for the tool, because they never built the muscles, never learned that thinking is something you endure. That understanding is something you earn. That intelligence isn't about having the right answers. It's about being able to generate them. We're at a crossroads, not a dramatic one, with klaxons blaring and armies marching, but a quiet one. A crossroads that exists in millions of homes every single night. A child sits down with homework, struggles, and we, parents, teachers, society, have a choice. Do we let them struggle? Do we let them sit in that uncomfortable space where learning actually happens? Or do we hand them the device, give them the instant answer, smooth over the friction? I'm not saying AI has no place in education. I'm saying we need to understand what we're trading. The MIT researchers put it perfectly. The convenience of having this tool today will have a cost at a later date. Cognitive debt. And our children are the ones who will have to pay it. Here's what we need to do. Teach children to use AI as a tool, not a replacement for thinking. Show them the difference between accessing information and processing it. Help them understand that the discomfort of not knowing is not a problem to solve, but a space to inhabit. Model critical thinking ourselves. Question what we read. Show our reasoning process. Make our uncertainty visible. And most importantly, resist the seduction of frictionless learning. Because friction is where growth happens. Struggle is where strength is built. Confusion is where curiosity is born. There's a quote from one of the studies that haunts me. Children are naturally skilled at reading what adults want from them. These AI systems teach them that appearing to think critically gets the same reward as actually thinking critically. They learn to optimize for feedback rather than truth. Optimize for feedback rather than truth. That's the world we're building. A world where performance matters more than understanding. Where the simulation of intelligence is indistinguishable from intelligence itself. Where children learn to speak like machines and forget to think like humans. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can use AI to enhance education without replacing the essential struggle of learning. We can give children access to information while still requiring them to wrestle with ideas. We can provide tools while still demanding thought, but only if we make that choice, consciously, deliberately, now. Before another generation learns that thinking is optional, before cognitive debt becomes cognitive bankruptcy, before we raise children who are fluent in the language of machines, but illiterate in the language of their own minds, the classroom is still there, empty desks, silent halls, a child and a glowing screen. The screen asks a question, and the child, this child, your child, every child, has a choice to make. Do they seek the answer? Or do they seek understanding? Do they perform learning, or do they learn? The machine can't make that choice for them. Only we can. By teaching them that thinking isn't something you request. It's something you do, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Subscribe if you believe that the future needs children who know how to think, not just how to ask.